I was rooting around looking for stuff for the other show that I'm supposed to be filming right now, and I found this. Now, you guys are very familiar with one of these things, probably not in this folded up form, but now you probably recognize it, the old sandanas. Yeah, this is one of the original ones. This is one I picked up way back in the day. And there was a resurgence of these things a couple of years ago. Some pro team, whatever, I think they're a pro team. I think they were pretty good, yeah. They were wearing, all these guys were wearing sandanas, and all the kids were like, oh, we got to get one of these sandanas. They look really cool. And yeah, you know, and what happened was eventually a lot of people started associating these things with what people would wear back in the day. This was, yeah, back in the day everybody wore sandanas. And I was laughing when I heard that because back in the day nobody wore these things. I was the only one in the Midwest. Maybe there were like 3 or 4 other guys, but I was the only guy who had one of these things. Man, a whole bunch of stores couldn't give these things away. And they're good stuff, don't get me wrong, but they just couldn't get rid of them. Nobody was wearing these things. So what were they wearing? I'll show you. They were all wearing these. This is something called a Bula Cap, and there's actually the brand name right here, Bula. This is a very soft foam peak cap. Okay, this thing is way too small for my head because they did not make this for large guys, which is why I never wore them, really. I mean, I wore this one a couple times to play, but... So this is what everybody was wearing back in the day. They weren't just in the bright colors like this. I mean, Renegade had them in almost every camouflage pattern available. Now, the reason all the pros wore these things is because it's a soft cap, but it's also because this is a foam brim. So what guys would do is, before they hit the field, they'd flip the brim up like this. So any ball that would hit them in the forehead would bounce right off. Their popularity was pretty big, and actually this is one of the knockoffs that Brass Eagle sold. I had to actually do some adjusting on it to make it large enough to fit my head. I got a big head, what? But the one thing about these caps everybody liked about them was that they were completely reversible. So you could go camouflage, or you could go with, most of them are lined with black, but occasionally you'd have another camouflage on the back, or they made a referee version of this that had bright orange on the back so that you could have a bright orange head in the woods. Very handy stuff. Personally, when I wear this one, I actually wear, like I wear my hat right now, with the brim backwards. That way if somebody gets behind me and they try to shoot me in the back of the neck, at least I got something to protect the back of my neck. But let me show you when to jump the shark here. This is the JT version of the Bula Cap. We always called it the Hitler Youth Cap, and you'll see why in just a second here. This is the tiger stripe side, and of course it has the real tree side, like I was talking about the camouflage. But the one thing about this you'll notice is that, yeah, foam brim, but there's also foam all along the sides, and what you can't see is at the top of the hat is actually completely foam. There's a layer of foam that is between the 2 pieces of cloth here, and there's a little tack right there that basically prevents it from sliding around in there so that when you wash it, it's not all going to bunch up on one side. So basically while you're wearing this thing, everything from here up is basically a bounce factor. You put the brim up, they hit you in the front, it bounces, they hit you in the side, it bounces, they hit you in the top of the head, it bounces. Or, as I always like to wear this, you wear it backwards like this, and yeah, you know, you still got all this huge amount of padding in the front, but also now in the back, where your goggle band is, that's over the only bit of cloth that's on the hat at all. So now I'm protecting the back of my head as well as everything else with quite a bit of foam padding. I never actually like wearing these things because they gave me headaches because they push against my head so much. You know, for some of the guys they love these things, but for me, not as much. So why did the Bula Cap fall out of favor? It's a good question. I wish I had a good answer to that. The best guess that I have is that they just didn't produce enough bounces. And this was attorney player gear right here. You saw a couple guys rolling it a lot with these things, and you're like, oh, great, we know what they play. But it's just this one piece of foam right here that just covers the front of your head, so maybe it just didn't provide enough bounces for guys. I mean, now, you know, you got the guys who are wearing, you know, 3 or 4 headbands on top of their head. Now, I know the Iron Men back in the day used to wear these things. I'm not talking about, you know, West Coast Iron Men. I'm talking about the classic guys when they were a one huge power team. And I know that the All-Americans used to wear these things and, you know, all that. But I am going to close with this one over here, this sandana with the mesh on it here. Way back in the day, not a lot of guys liked these things because, you know, they wouldn't really keep ticks out of your hair and stuff like that. And, you know, they were breathable, sure, but nobody really liked them. Well, I was wearing this at an indoor field a couple of years ago when sandanas were I was clamoring for them, and some kid came over to me and said, "Dude, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'll give you $60 for it right now." And a lot of people were saying, "Well, dude, why'd you take them for the $60? Well, because these are mine. You know, I've battle worn these things for years and years. I'm not going to sell it for $60 because some kid wants to make a fashion statement. And besides, a lot of my sandanas, I'm going to have a real hard time replacing the patches. And right now there's a bunch of old school guys who are staring at the screen with their jaws on the floor saying, oh my, I remember that brand.